Hello all, today we are going to look at Korag, 6th boss of Highmaul, and his mechanics and how to defeat him. So for this fight you want to make sure you have 2 tanks. There will be a take swap mechanic, as well as a good mix of DPS. You do want to have a mix of physical damage and magical damage DPS for this fight. So for this fight, Korag will start with a nullification barrier. It's a shield on him that absorbs all magical damage. So having the magic user's DPS burn that down with the physical damage is the mechanic for this fight. As you burn the shield down, then you can do true damage to his health. But as the shield depletes, he will return to the center of the room to regenerate this nullification barrier. Korag will also have a buff of Breaker Strength. Every 10 seconds it will stack up and gain another 6% of damage, increased damage. So the shield tanks have to watch for this. So we make sure we're burning the shield down quick enough so that those stacks don't get too high and the tanks don't take too much damage. Once nullification barrier is depleted though, the Breaker Strength buff is removed until the shield is regenerated. Then it will start over again and regenerate looking up from start from 1. So for the tanks, they're going to be taking turns beating on Korag. When one tank gets a debuff Expel Magic Arcane, they need to run out of the raid as far as they can from everybody and wait for this ability to detonate. It will inflict a large amount of arcane damage to anybody within 5 yards. Also, this will put a minor debuff on the tank that will increase his physical damage taken. So making sure that when he gets arcane, he needs to run out of the group with the other tank to pick him up until he gets the Expel Magic Arcane debuff. Other abilities Korag has will be an Expel Magic Fire. It'll put a dot on all of the raid. It will do some magic damage. At this point, everybody needs to make sure they're spread out 5 yards from each other, because after 10 seconds it will explode, causing more damage to anybody within range. This is also a dispellable effect, so certain magic users can dispel this from the players to help. Korag will also do Expel Magic Frost. It will put a magic orb into the area, and it will emanate frost damage as well as slowing speed down by 85%. So you need to watch for this orb and move away from it when it's being cast, or as soon as it is cast to avoid damage. Certain abilities that allow you to resist snares are in effect, such as a Shaman's Windwalk Totem does work to help escape this if you are in that range. Through the fight, Korag will do a trample effect, and it leaves a suppression field. He'll stamp the ground with a suppression field. So he'll face a certain player, typically it's always a range one it seems to be, and he'll run to them and stamp the ground with his hammer, and it leaves a suppression field. So if you're that player, you need to make sure you're moving out. You have plenty of time to move to avoid getting hit. Once this suppression field is on the ground though, you do need to avoid standing in it, especially magic users, because it is a silencing effect. It does have a long duration, but it does dissipate after probably a couple minutes. Once your group is able to complete the nullification barrier, Korag will run to the center of the room to regenerate this. At this time, you need to designate one range player to be inside this field, rune a field, at the same time. This one player is going to take a lot of arcane damage being stacked inside of there, but at the same time, the longer he can stay in there, he will end up getting his own nullification barrier, which will give him a nice shield. The longer he can stay in there, the better. It will have more health to it, up to 15 million damage absorption. While Korag is in his field regenerating his shield, volatile anomalies will spawn. It will start with 3 as soon as he enters, and every few seconds 3 more will spawn. At this time, the tanks need to pick them up, and the DPS is going to have to kill them down. You do need to watch when you kill them, because as soon as they die, they will explode, causing raid damage. So you want to make sure you're trying to minimize killing them all at once, so you'd avoid that damage. But the best strategy is to put them inside the suppression fields that are still in the area. This will actually silence them and avoid that explosion to the raid. So again, if the tanks could pick up all the volatile enemies and keep them inside the suppression fields until they die, you will avoid any raid-wide damage. Each time you defeat the barrier, again, Korag will return to the center of the ring to regenerate. You want to make sure you set up a group of ranged players to take turns running in and absorbing damage to get their own nullification barrier. Again, this barrier has a lot of health, so you can have multiple players through the fight with this barrier, and that's what you need. Through the fight, there will be overflowing energy. This is going to be orbs coming down from the sky and land on the ground. You will see little swirls marks on the floor. If they hit the floor, it will cause a lot of raid-wide damage. Through the fight, the number of orbs that are spawning will increase. Having the players with the nullification barriers standing aside of these landing points and absorbing those orbs will avoid the damage to the raid. That is the purpose of going into the barrier and absorbing your own. So again, through the fight, you're going to make sure that each player stacks up. You have different number of players range, absorbing and getting their own nullification barrier to absorb these orbs landing on the ground. Thank you for watching my video, and good luck on your kill of Korag.